The phone screamed at me from the nightstand at 12:47 a.m., cutting through the silence like a rusty blade through flesh. I knew before I answered that my world was about to collapse. "Dad?" My son's voice trembled through the speaker, barely a whisper. "I can't breathe. The pump, it's off." My 12-year-old diabetic son, Tyler, was having an emergency. His insulin pump had been disabled. Not malfunctioned, disabled. I could hear the deliberate click of switches being flipped in the background. "Stay calm, buddy. I'm calling 911 right now." I threw on clothes while dialing emergency services with shaking fingers. 20 years of marriage, and I always knew Selah was cold, but this was Siberia in January. Using our son's medical condition as a weapon crossed every line I thought existed between us. The drive home felt like swimming through molasses. Red and blue lights already painted our pristine suburban driveway when I arrived. Our house looked like a Pottery Barn catalog with a heartbeat, all clean lines and calculated warmth that fooled everyone except the people who lived inside it. "Mr. Eldro?" The female officer approached me as I stumbled out of my truck. "Your son is stable. Paramedics are with him now." "Where's my wife?" "Inside, being questioned." "Sir, we need to ask you some questions about the insulin pump." I found Selah in our kitchen, perfectly composed despite the chaos. She wore her silk pajamas like armor, every strand of her auburn hair still in place. Even at nearly 1 a.m, she looked like she was ready for a magazine photo shoot. "Pierce." She didn't even look up from her coffee. "You're being dramatic. Tyler was fine." The officer beside her raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, your son was in diabetic distress. The pump was manually shut off." "It's called parenting," Selah said, her voice carrying that familiar ice-cold authority she used in her PR firm downtown. He was being defiant about his bedtime. The room went silent except for the hum of our stainless steel refrigerator. Even the cops looked stunned. "You turned off his life support because he wouldn't go to bed?" I asked. "Don't be so melodramatic. It wasn't life support." The officer cleared her throat. "Ma'am, we're going to need to confiscate the pump as evidence. Child services will be contacted." For the first time all night, Selah's composure cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but I saw it. Her perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her coffee mug. "Evidence of what?" "I'm his mother." "Evidence of child endangerment." I watched my wife's face transform from shock to fury to calculation in the span of 3 seconds. She was already planning her next move, figuring out how to spin this disaster into someone else's fault, probably mine. The paramedics wheeled Tyler past us on a stretcher. His face was pale but alert, and he gave me a weak thumbs up. That simple gesture hit me harder than any punch I'd ever taken in Riley's boxing gym. "Dad, I'm okay," he whispered as they passed. But I wasn't okay. Something fundamental had shifted inside me, like tectonic plates grinding against each other before an earthquake. At the hospital, while Tyler received treatment, I sat in those uncomfortable plastic chairs that every emergency room in America seemed to order from the same catalog. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps, and the smell of disinfectant couldn't quite mask the underlying scent of human desperation. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Janice. "Check your bank account. Now." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I logged into our joint checking account and felt my stomach drop. Selah had moved $43,000 to an account I didn't recognize. Our savings account showed a balance of $127. She'd been planning this. Another text from Janice. "She's been calling your business partners, told Jim Morrison you've been drinking on the job." Jim Morrison owned the largest auto dealership in town and sent me half my repair work. If he believed Selah's lies, I'd lose my biggest client. I called Jim immediately, despite the late hour. "Pierce?" Jesus, it's 2 in the morning. Jim, I need you to know that whatever my wife told you about me drinking is a lie. She's trying to destroy my business. A pause. She called yesterday. Said you've been unstable, that she's worried about your customers' safety. Jim, I've been working on cars for 22 years. When have you ever seen me drink on the job? Another pause, longer this time. Never, actually. But Pierce, why would she lie about something like that? Because she's trying to take everything from me, including our son. I could hear Jim thinking on the other end of the line. We'd known each other since high school, back when we both drove rusted-out Chevys and dreamed of something better. I'll call the other guys, Jim finally said. Let them know what's really going on. Thanks, Jim. I owe you. No, you don't. But Pierce? Watch your back. If she's playing this dirty already, it's going to get worse. He was right. This was just the opening move in what was going to be a very ugly game. I spent the rest of the night in Tyler's hospital room, watching him sleep and planning my countermove. Selah had made the first strike, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. By dawn, I'd frozen our joint accounts, called my business partners to warn them about Selah's sabotage campaign, and documented everything the police had told me about the insulin pump incident. If she wanted to play chess, I'd show her what a real game looked like. My phone buzzed with a text message at 6:23 a.m., unknown number, but the content made my hands shake. It was a photo of Selah at the Marriott bar downtown, her arm wrapped around a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. They were laughing at something, and Selah's hand rested on his thigh. The message read, "Thought you should know. She's been meeting him every Tuesday for 3 months. A friend." I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. 20 years of marriage, and she'd been cheating for 3 months. While I worked 60-hour weeks to keep our family afloat, she'd been playing house with Mr. Expensive Suit. Tyler stirred in his hospital bed, and I quickly put the phone away. He didn't need to see this. Whatever war was coming between his mother and me, he was going to be protected from the worst of it. "Dad?" His voice was stronger now, more like the kid who built elaborate Lego cities and explained the plot of every superhero movie ever made. "Right here, buddy." "Is Mom in trouble?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. At 12, he was old enough to understand that something was seriously wrong in our family, but young enough to still believe that adults could fix anything. "Mom made some bad choices," I said carefully. "But you're safe now. That's all that matters." "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit me like a wrench to the chest. I'd been so focused on Selah's immediate betrayals that I hadn't fully processed where this was all leading. "I don't know yet, Tyler. But whatever happens, you're the most important thing in my life. That will never change." He nodded, and I could see him trying to be brave. It broke something inside me that I didn't know could break. A nurse came in to check Tyler's vitals and adjust his new insulin pump. She was kind and professional, but I caught her giving me sympathetic looks when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The story was already spreading through the hospital staff. "He can go home this afternoon," she told me, "but you'll need to follow up with his endocrinologist within 48 hours. "What about his mother? Can she be around him?" The nurse's expression tightened. "That's not a medical decision, sir. But there will probably be some legal requirements about supervision." Legal requirements, child services, court dates. My quiet life as a small-town mechanic was about to become a very public nightmare. I called my shop and told Danny, my assistant manager, that I wouldn't be in until tomorrow. Danny had worked for me for 8 years and knew better than to ask too many questions when I sounded like this. "Take care of whatever you need to take care of, boss. We've got things covered here." That was Danny, loyal, competent, and smart enough to read between the lines. I was going to need people like him in the coming weeks. Selah arrived at the hospital around noon, dressed in her power suit and carrying a briefcase like she was heading to a board meeting instead of visiting her hospitalized son. She'd brought her lawyer. Pierce? She nodded at me like I was a business acquaintance. We need to talk. About what? How you nearly put our son in a coma? Her lawyer, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the personality of wet cardboard, stepped forward. Mr. Eldro, my client is prepared to discuss a reasonable custody arrangement. Your client endangered a child. There's nothing reasonable about that. That's not how it happened, Selah said, her voice perfectly modulated for maximum believability. Tyler was having a tantrum. I was trying to get his attention. By turning off his insulin pump. I turned it off for 30 seconds, maybe a minute. I was going to turn it right back on. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly that I almost believed it myself. This was Selah's superpower, the ability to rewrite reality with complete conviction. It's what made her so good at her job, and so dangerous as an opponent. The police report says otherwise. Her lawyer consulted his notes. Police reports can be incomplete, especially when they're based on the testimony of a frightened child in the middle of a medical emergency. I wanted to grab this smug little weasel by his expensive tie and explain exactly what I thought of his legal theories. Instead, I smiled. You're right. Good thing the insulin pump has a digital log that records every time it's turned on and off, including timestamps. Selah's face went pale. She hadn't thought of that. The pump was off for 11 minutes, I continued. 11 minutes of a diabetic child going without insulin in the middle of the night. That's not a tantrum response. That's attempted harm. The lawyer whispered something to Selah, and she nodded curtly. We'll be in touch, he said, and they left without even visiting Tyler. I watched them walk away through the hospital's glass doors, and something cold and calculating settled in my chest. For 20 years, I'd played defense in this marriage. I'd absorbed Selah's criticism, her manipulation, her constant attempts to make me smaller so she could feel bigger. But she'd crossed a line when she hurt Tyler, and now I knew about her affair. The game had changed, and so had I. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Her boyfriend is Dr. Mason Greer, wellness consultant at her firm. Thought you'd want a name to go with the face. I smiled for the first time in 12 hours. Information was power, and I was just getting started collecting it. Tyler came home that afternoon with a new insulin pump and strict instructions about monitoring his levels. The house felt different now, charged with tension like the air before a thunderstorm. Selah moved through our kitchen like she owned it, which technically she did, at least until the lawyers sorted everything out. I've made appointments with 3 family counselors, she announced, setting her briefcase on our granite countertop. We need to present a united front for Tyler's sake. United front? I almost laughed. You mean the front where you pretend you didn't endanger our son? I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Pierce. Even you. There it was, the subtle shift that made everything my fault somehow. Selah could turn a conversation faster than a NASCAR driver taking a corner. What mistakes have I made exactly? She opened her briefcase and pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. Well, there's your drinking problem. I don't have a drinking problem. 3 beers every night after work suggests otherwise. There's your anger management issues. What anger management issues? You raised your voice to me last Tuesday when I asked you to pick up Tyler from soccer practice. There's your financial irresponsibility. She was building a case, line by line, turning normal human behavior into evidence of my unfitness as a father. It was masterful and completely evil. And then there's this. She pulled out a photograph. Me and Riley at Murphy's bar last Friday night, sharing a pitcher of beer and watching the game. Drinking and driving, Pierce. Very responsible. Riley drove that night. You know that. Do I? Prove it. I stared at this woman I'd been married to for 20 years and realized I'd never really known her at all. The Selah I thought I'd married. Ambitious but caring, strong but fair. had either never existed or had died somewhere along the way. I have proof of something too, I said, pulling out my phone. Her confidence flickered for just a moment when she saw the photo of her and Dr. Mason Greer at the Marriott bar. That's not what it looks like. It looks like my wife having an affair. It's a business meeting. Business meetings don't usually involve hand-holding and thigh-touching. Selah's lawyer training kicked in. Never admit anything. Always deflect. Even if that were true, which it isn't, it doesn't change the fact that you're an unfit father. We'll see what the judge thinks about that. She smiled then, cold and predatory. Oh, Pierce, you sweet, naive man, do you really think you can beat me in court? I make 3 times what you do. I have connections throughout this city. I know judges, lawyers, social workers. What do you have? A garage full of broken cars and beer bottles? The contempt in her voice hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't anger or hurt feelings talking. This was pure, calculated cruelty. I have the truth. Truth is whatever the jury believes. And juries believe people like me, not people like you. She was probably right, and we both knew it. In family court, image mattered more than facts, and Selah had spent her entire career crafting images. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd shown me her hand too early. That evening, after Tyler was safely asleep, I drove to Murphy's bar to meet Riley. The place hadn't changed since we were 22. Same scarred wooden tables, same neon beer signs, same smell of fried food and spilled dreams. Riley owned it now, along with the boxing gym in the back room where he trained local kids and middle-aged guys like me who needed to hit something legal. "You look like hell," Riley said, sliding a beer across the bar to me. "Feel worse than I look." I told him everything: the insulin pump, the affair, Selah's legal threats. Riley listened without interrupting, which was one of his best qualities. 20 years as a cop had taught him when to talk and when to just absorb information. "So what's your play?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know yet. She's got more money, better lawyers, and a head start on building her case against me. But she's got weaknesses too. The affair, for one. And Pierce? What she did to Tyler? That's not going away. Child Services doesn't forget stuff like that. She'll spin it, make it look like an accident or a misunderstanding. Maybe, but you've got something she doesn't." "What's that?" "People actually like you." It was true, in a way. I'd lived in this town my entire life, gone to school with half the people who still lived here, fixed their cars, coached their kids' little league teams. Selah had connections, but I had relationships. "There's something else," Riley said, lowering his voice. "My buddy Jake works security at the Marriott. Says your wife and her boyfriend have been meeting there every Tuesday for months. Always the same room, 314. Jake would testify to that? If it came to it, yeah. But Pierce, you need to be careful how you play this. Selah's not going to fight fair, which means you can't either. But you've got to be smarter about it." We spent the next hour planning. Riley had retained more of his detective instincts than he liked to admit, and his strategic mind was exactly what I needed. "First thing, document everything," he said. "Every conversation, every threat, every time she's late picking up Tyler or misses a school event, build a pattern." "Already started." "Good." "Second, find out everything you can about Dr. Greer. Affairs make people sloppy. If he's cheating with your wife, he's probably cheating on his own wife too." "How do I find that out?" Riley smiled. "Leave that to me. I still have friends in useful places." The next morning, I opened my shop as usual. Eldro Auto Repair occupied a corner lot on Main Street, sandwiched between a hardware store and a diner that served coffee strong enough to wake the deceased. I'd bought the building 12 years ago with money I'd saved by working nights and weekends, back when Selah still pretended to respect my ambition. Danny was already there, elbows deep in the engine of a Ford pickup that had seen better decades. "Morning, boss. How's Tyler?" He's okay. Thanks for covering yesterday. No problem. Hey, weird thing though. Some woman came by asking questions about you. I froze. What kind of questions? Whether you drink on the job, whether you've ever seemed unstable, whether customers have complained about your work, real specific stuff. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're the most reliable guy I know, and that I've never seen you drink anything stronger than coffee during work hours. Danny had been with me long enough to read my expression. This is about your wife, isn't it? Yeah. She's building a case to take Tyler away from me. That's messed up, boss. Tyler adores you. Doesn't matter what Tyler wants, only matters what a judge thinks. We worked in companionable silence for a while, but I could feel Danny watching me with concern. He was 28, married to his high school sweetheart, still believed that good people won and bad people lost. I envied his optimism. Around noon, my sister Janice called. I did some digging on your wife's boyfriend, she said without preamble. Janice worked in medical billing and had access to databases that most people never thought about. What did you find? Dr. Mason Greer, age 46, married to Patricia Greer for 18 years, 2 kids in college. He's been sued twice for malpractice. Both cases settled out of court. And get this, he's not actually a medical doctor. He has a PhD in psychology, but he's been letting people call him doctor in a way that implies medical training. Is that illegal? Gray area. But it's definitely unethical, especially since he's consulting on workplace wellness programs. Companies are paying him medical doctor rates for psychology advice. This was useful information. Selah's boyfriend wasn't just an adulterer, he was potentially a fraud. There's more, Janice continued. I found 3 other women who filed complaints with the state licensing board about inappropriate behavior during consulting sessions. Nothing criminal, but a pattern of using his position to proposition female employees. Can you get me copies of those complaints? Already done. I'm emailing them to you now. I hung up feeling something I hadn't experienced in days. Hope. Selah thought she held all the cards, but Dr. Greer was turning out to be a liability rather than an asset. That afternoon, I picked Tyler up from school. He was quiet during the drive home, staring out the window at the familiar streets of our neighborhood. Dad? Are you and Mom really getting divorced? Probably, buddy. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, he said quietly. I heard what she did with my pump. That was really scary. You don't have to worry about that anymore. I won't let anyone hurt you. What if the judge makes me live with Mom? The question I'd been dreading. Then I'll fight to change that. But Tyler, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay, I promise. He nodded, but I could see the worry in his 12-year-old eyes. This wasn't his burden to carry, but Selah had made it his burden anyway. When we got home, Selah's car was in the driveway along with 2 others I didn't recognize. Through the living room window, I could see her meeting with what looked like a full legal team. Why don't you go to your room and work on homework? I told Tyler. I'll call you when dinner's ready. I walked into my own living room feeling like an intruder. Selah sat at the head of our dining room table with 3 people in expensive suits, documents spread across the surface like battle plans. Pierce, she said without looking up, we're discussing the custody arrangement. Without me? You can get your own lawyer if you want to participate in these conversations. One of the suits, a woman with steel gray hair and predatory eyes, looked up at me. Mr. Eldrow, I'm Margaret Chen, representing your wife in this matter. We're prepared to offer you very reasonable visitation rights. Visitation rights? To see my own son? Given the circumstances, we think supervised visitation is appropriate, at least initially. What circumstances? Margaret consulted her notes. The drinking, the anger management issues, the financial irresponsibility, and of course, there's the incident with Tyler's medical equipment. What incident with Tyler's medical equipment? When you tampered with his insulin pump to make your wife look bad. The room went silent. Even Selah looked surprised by this particular lie. I didn't tamper with anything. Your client turned off our son's insulin pump. That's not what our investigation suggests, Margaret said smoothly. We have evidence that you've been unstable for months, that you've made threats against your wife, and that you deliberately created a medical emergency to frame her. I looked at Selah, sitting there in her perfect suit with her perfect hair, watching her lawyers destroy my life with surgical precision. She'd thought of everything, even a way to turn her own crime into evidence of my guilt. Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me. All of you, get out of my house. Margaret smiled. Actually, Mr. Eldro, this is your wife's house too. She has every right to meet with her legal team here. Fine. Then I'll leave. I walked out of my own home and sat in my truck in the driveway, hands shaking with rage and frustration. Through the window, I could see them continuing their meeting, probably planning my complete destruction. My phone buzzed with a text from Riley. Meet me at the gym, now, I have something you need to see. The boxing gym behind Murphy's bar smelled like sweat and determination. Riley was waiting for me with a manila envelope and a grim expression. Jake came through, he said, handing me the envelope. Photos, timestamps, credit card receipts. Your wife and Dr. Greer have been meeting at the Marriott every Tuesday for 4 months, not 3. Always room 314, always charged to his company credit card. I opened the envelope and found a dozen photographs of Selah and Greer entering and leaving the hotel, plus copies of hotel records showing the room rentals. This is enough to prove the affair, I said. It gets better. I had a conversation with Dr. Greer's wife this afternoon. I looked up sharply. You talked to Patricia Greer? Interesting woman. Turns out she's been suspicious of her husband for a while now. When I showed her these photos, she got very cooperative very quickly. Cooperative how? Riley smiled. She's filing for divorce tomorrow, and she's willing to testify about her husband's pattern of affairs, including the one with your wife. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe properly. There's more, Riley continued. Patricia Greer is a family court judge in the next county over. She knows exactly how these cases work, and she's very motivated to make sure her husband's behavior comes to light. A family court judge? Selah's boyfriend is cheating on a family court judge? Apparently, Dr. Greer isn't as smart as he thinks he is. I started laughing, not because anything was funny, but because the irony was too perfect. Selah thought she'd found the perfect ally in her affair partner, but she'd actually chosen the one man in town whose wife had both the knowledge and the motivation to destroy them both. What's our next move? I asked. We let them make the first move in court. Let Selah present her case about what an unfit father you are. Then we drop the affair evidence and watch her credibility evaporate. What about Tyler? I don't want him to get hurt by all this. Tyler's going to be fine, Pierce. Kids are tougher than we think, and he's got a father who's willing to fight for him. That's more than a lot of kids have. I spent an hour hitting the heavy bag, working out months of frustration and anger with my fists. Each punch felt like a small victory, a tiny piece of control reclaimed. When I got home, Selah's legal team was gone, but she was still sitting at the dining room table, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. We need to talk, she said. I thought your lawyers did all your talking now. Pierce, this doesn't have to get ugly. We can work something out that's fair to both of us. I sat down across from her, studying her face. She was worried about something. I could see it in the way she kept adjusting her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd had since college. What's fair, Selah? Supervised visitation to see my own son, losing my house, paying you alimony while you continue your affair with Dr. Greer? She flinched at the mention of Greer's name. I don't know what you think you know. I know everything. The hotel room, the credit card receipts, the pattern of meetings. I also know about his wife. Selah's face went pale. What about his wife? She's filing for divorce, tomorrow, and she's very interested in making sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man her husband is. For a moment, Selah looked genuinely frightened. Then her lawyer training kicked in, and the mask slipped back into place. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything between us. It changes everything. Your boyfriend isn't going to be available to support you through this process. He's going to be too busy trying to save his own career and his relationship with his kids. Selah stood up abruptly. This conversation is over. Yes, it is. But Selah, the war you started isn't over. Not even close. She walked upstairs without responding, but I could see the defeat in her shoulders. For the first time since this nightmare began, she was the one who looked scared. I checked on Tyler, who was asleep with his math homework still spread across his desk. He looked so young and peaceful that I felt a renewed surge of determination. Whatever it took, however ugly this got, I was going to protect him. My phone buzzed with one final text from the unknown number. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Patricia Greer is holding a press conference about her husband's professional misconduct. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled in the darkness of Tyler's room. Selah had started this war by attacking the most vulnerable member of our family. But she'd chosen the wrong enemy, and tomorrow she was going to find out exactly how wrong she'd been. The game was just getting started. I woke up at 5 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly. 17 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, 12 voicemails, and 43 text messages. Something had happened. The first voicemail was from Jim Morrison. "Pierce, turn on Channel 7 News, right now." I stumbled downstairs and flicked on the television just in time to catch the tail end of a news report. Patricia Greer, elegant and composed in a navy blue suit, stood behind a podium outside the county courthouse. Pattern of professional misconduct spanning several years. Dr. Mason Greer has used his position as a wellness consultant to proposition female employees and engage in inappropriate relationships. I am filing both for divorce and formal complaints with the state licensing board. The reporter's voice cut in. "Judge Greer, can you comment on rumors that your husband was having an affair with a local public relations executive?" I cannot comment on ongoing legal proceedings, but I will say this. The truth has a way of coming to light, especially when children are involved. The camera cut back to the studio, where the anchor was shuffling papers with barely concealed glee. In related news, Selah Eldro, senior partner at Morrison & Associates Public Relations, has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into her relationship with Dr. Greer and its impact on client services. I sat down hard on my couch. Patricia Greer hadn't just filed for divorce, she'd launched a nuclear strike against both her husband and Selah. And she'd done it publicly, professionally, and completely legally. My phone rang. Selah's name appeared on the screen. "You did this," she said without preamble. Her voice was shaking with rage. "I didn't do anything. Your boyfriend's wife did this. You talked to her. You gave her those photos." "I never spoke to Patricia Greer in my life." "Then how did she—" Selah stopped, realizing she was admitting to the affair. "How did she find out about your relationship with her husband?" "Probably the same way I did." "People talk, Selah. Especially when you're not as careful as you think you are. This is going to destroy me." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You destroyed yourself when you turned off Tyler's insulin pump. Everything else is just consequences." She hung up without responding. Tyler appeared at the top of the stairs in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, why is the TV so loud?" "Sorry, buddy. Just catching up on the news. Go get ready for school." "Is Mom okay?" I heard her crying. I looked up the stairs toward our bedroom, where Selah was presumably dealing with the complete collapse of her professional reputation. "Mom's going through a difficult time right now, but you don't need to worry about that. That's adult stuff." Tyler nodded and headed back upstairs. He was a good kid, too good to be caught in the middle of this mess. I made coffee and scrolled through the rest of my messages. Half were from friends and customers offering support, the other half from reporters wanting comments about the Eldrow divorce scandal. Apparently, we were local news now. Danny called while I was getting dressed. "Boss, you might want to take the day off. There are 3 news vans parked outside the shop." "Reporters?" "Yeah, and they're asking everyone who walks by about you and your wife. Mrs. Henderson from the diner told one of them that you're the most decent man in town and that your wife is a cold fish who thinks she's better than everyone else." Mrs. Henderson had never liked Selah, mainly because Selah had once complained about the diner's unprofessional atmosphere during a town council meeting. Apparently, she'd been holding that grudge for 3 years. "I'll be in this afternoon," I told Danny. "Let the reporters ask their questions. I've got nothing to hide." "What about your wife? What about her? Is she really having an affair with that doctor guy?" I paused, considering my answer. The truth was already public record thanks to Patricia Greer's press conference, but there was a difference between acknowledging facts and gossiping about my personal life. "Danny, I'm going through a divorce. That's all I'm going to say about it." "Got it, boss. But hey, everyone in town is on your side, just so you know." After Danny hung up, I realized he was probably right. Selah had spent years cultivating an image of sophisticated superiority that impressed people from a distance, but didn't inspire much loyalty up close. I'd spent the same years just being myself, fixing cars, coaching Little League, showing up when people needed help. In a small town, that kind of consistency mattered more than professional success. I drove Tyler to school through a gauntlet of curious stares and sympathetic waves. Word traveled fast in our community, and apparently the word was that Pierce Eldro was the wronged party in this drama. "Dad," Tyler said as we pulled into the school parking lot, "are people going to ask me questions about Mom and that man?" "They might. If they do, just tell them it's private family business and you don't want to talk about it." "What if they keep asking?" "Then you tell them to talk to me or your mother. You're 12 years old, Tyler. None of this is your responsibility." He nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. Kids his age were brutal when they sensed weakness or scandal, and Tyler was about to become the center of both. "Hey," I said, catching his attention before he got out of the truck. "If anyone gives you trouble, and I mean anyone, you call me immediately. I don't care if I'm with a customer or in a meeting. You call and I'll be here in 5 minutes." "Okay, Dad." "I love you, buddy. Remember that, no matter what anyone says about our family." "I love you too." I watched him walk into the school building, shoulders squared and head up, and felt a surge of pride. Whatever else Selah and I had screwed up, we'd raised a good kid. My phone rang as I was leaving the school parking lot. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Mr. Eldro? This is Margaret Chen, your wife's attorney. We need to schedule a meeting to discuss the custody arrangement." I thought we were letting the court decide custody. "Given the recent developments, my client is prepared to be more flexible about the arrangements." Recent developments. That was one way to describe having your affair exposed on local television. "How flexible?" "We're willing to discuss joint custody with you as the primary custodial parent." I almost drove off the road. 24 hours ago, Selah was demanding supervised visitation. Now she was offering me primary custody. What's the catch? No catch. My client simply wants what's best for Tyler, and she recognizes that stability is important during this transition. Stability. Right. Can we schedule a meeting for this afternoon? I'll call you back. I hung up and immediately called Riley. She's panicking, he said after I explained the call. Her career is in ruins. Her boyfriend is about to lose his license, and she knows that any family court judge who sees that news report is going to question her judgment. So I should take the deal? Hell no. This is just the opening offer. She's going to try to salvage something from this disaster, which means she's planning another move. What kind of move? I don't know yet, but Pierce, people like your wife don't give up this easily. She's regrouping, not surrendering. Riley was right. I'd known Selah for 22 years, and she'd never backed down from a fight in her life. If she was offering concessions now, it was because she was planning something bigger. I spent the morning at Murphy's bar, helping Riley with inventory and trying to think through Selah's possible strategies. The bar was closed during the day, which made it a perfect place to plan without interruption. She could claim you manipulated the situation, Riley suggested, that you somehow orchestrated the affair exposure to make her look bad. How could I orchestrate her husband's wife finding out about the affair? Doesn't matter if it's true, just matters if it sounds plausible to a judge. What else? She could go after your fitness as a parent from a different angle. Mental health, maybe. Claim that your reaction to the divorce has been extreme or unstable. I thought about that. I had been angry, certainly, and I'd been planning revenge against Selah and her allies. If she could document that somehow, frame it as threatening behavior. Riley, what if she's recording our conversations? What if she's been building a case that I'm dangerous? Then you need to be very careful about what you say and do from now on. No threats, no angry outbursts, no behavior that could be interpreted as intimidation. Even when she deserves it? Especially when she deserves it. We spent another hour discussing strategy before I felt confident enough to call Margaret Chen back. We can meet, I told her, but I want my own attorney present, and I want the meeting recorded. That's unusual. So is offering primary custody to someone you claimed was an unfit father 2 days ago. A pause. Very well. 2 o'clock at our offices? No. Neutral location. The conference room at the public library. Another pause. Fine. 2 o'clock. I hung up feeling like I'd won a small victory. Making them meet on neutral ground sent a message that I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. I called Tom Bradley, the best family law attorney in town, and explained the situation. Tom had handled my business incorporation years ago and had always struck me as both competent and honest. Pierce, I have to ask, did you have anything to do with that news conference this morning? No. I never spoke to Patricia Greer. Good, because that would have been a very risky move. As it stands, though, you're in a much stronger position than you were yesterday. Strong enough to get primary custody? Strong enough to get whatever custody arrangement is actually in Tyler's best interest, which, given what I know about your wife's recent behavior, probably means significant time with you. We agreed to meet at 1:30 to prepare for the 2-hour meeting with Selah's team. I picked up lunch from the diner and ate while reading the local newspaper's coverage of the Patricia Greer press conference. The reporter had done their homework. They'd found 2 other women willing to go on record about Dr. Greer's inappropriate behavior, and they'd connected his consulting work to several local businesses, including Selah's firm. The article painted a picture of a man who'd systematically abused his professional position for personal gain, with Selah as his most recent and most prominent victim. Except the article also made it clear that Selah was a willing participant, not just a victim. My phone buzzed with a text from Janice. Saw the news? How are you holding up? Better than expected, I replied. Selah's team wants to negotiate. Be careful. Cornered animals are dangerous. She was right, but I was past the point of playing it safe. Selah had started this war when she endangered Tyler, and I was going to finish it. At 1:30, I met Tom Bradley at the library. He was a tall, thin man with prematurely gray hair and the kind of calm demeanor that probably served him well in contentious divorce proceedings. Before we go in there, he said, I want you to understand something. Your wife is in a very bad position right now, professionally and personally. That makes her dangerous, but it also makes her desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that lose them custody cases. Let her talk. Let her make demands. Let her show the judge, because everything we say today will eventually be presented to a judge, exactly who she really is. And if she tries to make me look bad, then we'll respond with facts. You've got a clean record, stable employment, community ties, and most importantly, you've never endangered your child's health for personal gain. At exactly 2:00, we walked into the library's conference room. Selah was already there with Margaret Chen and another attorney I didn't recognize. She looked composed and professional, but I could see the strain around her eyes. "Pierce," she said with a nod. "Selah." Margaret Chen took charge of the meeting. "We're here to discuss a custody arrangement that serves Tyler's best interests, while acknowledging the reality of the current situation." "What reality is that?" Tom asked. "The reality that this family is going through a difficult transition, and stability is paramount." "I agree," Tom said, "which is why my client should have primary custody. He's the parent who didn't endanger the child's health, didn't have an affair, and didn't lose his job due to professional misconduct." Selah's composure cracked slightly. "I didn't lose my job. I'm on administrative leave. Pending an investigation into your relationship with Dr. Greer and its impact on your professional responsibilities," Tom replied, "which is effectively the same thing." Margaret Chen intervened. "My client's employment status is temporary and not relevant to her fitness as a mother. Her judgment is relevant to her fitness as a mother, and her judgment led her to endanger her child's health and engage in an affair that's now public knowledge. The insulin pump incident was a misunderstanding. The insulin pump incident was child endangerment," Tom said firmly. "The police report is clear, the medical records are clear, and the digital logs from the pump itself are clear. There's no ambiguity here." I watched Selah's face as Tom systematically dismantled her position. She looked like she was calculating something, planning her next move. "What are you proposing?" Margaret Chen asked. "Primary custody to Mr. Eldro, with reasonable visitation for Mrs. Eldro. Supervised initially, given the child endangerment incident. That's unacceptable. Then we'll let a judge decide." Selah spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "Pierce, you don't want to do this publicly. Think about Tyler. Think about what a custody battle will do to him." "I am thinking about Tyler. I'm thinking about keeping him safe from someone who uses his medical condition as a weapon. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened, and everyone in this room knows it." Selah's mask finally slipped completely. "You self-righteous piece of garbage. You think you're so much better than me, but you're just a mechanic. You fix broken things because that's all you're qualified to do." The room went silent. Even Margaret Chen looked shocked by her client's outburst. Tom smiled slightly. "I think we're done here. Mrs. Eldro, you'll be hearing from us through the court system." We stood to leave, but Selah wasn't finished. "This isn't over, Pierce. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I turned back to look at her. "Actually, Selah, I think I'm starting to figure that out." Outside the library, Tom was practically grinning. "That went better than I hoped," he said. "She just gave us everything we need to demonstrate her unfitness as a parent." The threat at the end? The threat, the personal attack, the complete lack of concern for Tyler's well-being. Pierce, that meeting was a gift. So what happens now? Now we file for emergency custody based on the child endangerment incident and her threatening behavior. With her professional reputation in ruins and her judgment clearly compromised, we should be able to get a temporary order fairly quickly. I drove home, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks: genuine hope. Selah had overplayed her hand, and now she was going to face the consequences. But as I pulled into my driveway, I saw Tyler sitting on the front steps with his backpack, looking miserable. "Hey, buddy, how was school?" "Terrible. Everyone was asking me about Mom and that man, and some kids were saying mean things." I sat down beside him on the steps. "What kind of mean things?" "That Mom's a cheater and that you're going to take me away from her and that our family is messed up." "Tyler, look at me. Our family is going through a hard time right now, but that doesn't make us messed up. And I'm not taking you away from your mother. I'm making sure you're safe and taken care of. But what if I want to live with both of you?" The question broke my heart. "Buddy, sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes adults make choices that change everything, and kids get caught in the middle even though it's not their fault." Did you make choices that changed everything too? I thought about that carefully. I made the choice to protect you when your mother hurt you, and I made the choice to find out the truth about what's been happening in our family. Those choices led to changes, but they were the right choices. Tyler nodded slowly. I don't want to live with Mom if she's going to hurt me again. She's not going to hurt you again, I promise. How can you promise that? Because I'm not going to let it happen. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the neighborhood kids ride their bikes and play in their yards. Normal family life continuing all around us while our world fell apart. Dad? Yeah? Are you going to be okay? I looked at my 12-year-old son, worried about his father's well-being in the middle of his own crisis, and felt a surge of love so strong it almost knocked me over. I'm going to be fine, Tyler, better than fine. We both are. Promise? I promise. That night, after Tyler was asleep, I sat in my kitchen and made a list of everything I needed to do to protect him and secure our future together. The legal battle was just beginning, but I was no longer the confused, defensive husband who'd answered his phone at 12:47 a.m. 4 days ago. Selah had turned me into something harder, smarter, and more determined than she'd ever imagined I could be. Tomorrow, she was going to find out exactly what she'd created. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Tom Bradley called Wednesday evening to give me the details and prepare me for what was coming. Judge Harrison is hearing the case, he said. She's fair but tough, and she doesn't tolerate games. The good news is that Selah's behavior at yesterday's meeting is going to work in our favor. What about her lawyers? Are they going to try something? Probably. Margaret Chen is known for creative interpretations of facts, but she's also smart enough to know when her client is in trouble. My guess is they'll try to paint you as vindictive and controlling. How do I counter that? By being yourself. Answer questions directly, don't get defensive, and remember, the judge cares about Tyler's welfare, not your feelings about your wife's affair. That night, I barely slept. I kept running through possible scenarios, imagining ways Selah might try to turn the situation to her advantage. By 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made coffee, sitting in my kitchen and watching the sun come up over our suburban neighborhood. Tyler found me there at 6:30, already dressed for school. Big day? He asked, pouring himself a bowl of cereal. Yeah, buddy. The judge is going to make some decisions about where you'll be living. Do I have to go to court? Not today. But the judge might want to talk to you privately at some point, just to make sure your voice is heard. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. Dad, whatever happens, I want you to know that you're a good father. The simple statement hit me harder than any of Selah's insults or threats. This kid, caught in the middle of an ugly divorce, was worried about making his father feel better. Thank you, Tyler. That means everything to me. I dropped him at school and drove to the courthouse, arriving 30 minutes early to meet with Tom. The building was one of those imposing stone structures that were designed to make people feel small and intimidated, but today it felt like a sanctuary. Tom was waiting in the lobby with a thick folder of documents. How are you feeling? He asked. Ready. Good. Remember, stay calm, stick to the facts, and let Selah's actions speak for themselves. We walked into the courtroom at exactly 8:55 a.m. Selah was already seated at the opposite table with Margaret Chen and the other attorney from yesterday's meeting. She was dressed in her most conservative suit, her hair pulled back in a style that made her look younger and more vulnerable. Judge Harrison entered at 9 sharp. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and the kind of no-nonsense expression that suggested she'd seen every possible variation of human stupidity. This is an emergency hearing regarding custody of Tyler Eldro, age 12, she began. Mr. Bradley, you've filed for emergency custody based on allegations of child endangerment. Please present your case. Tom stood and methodically laid out the facts: the insulin pump incident, the police report, the medical records, the digital logs from the pump itself. He presented everything in chronological order, without editorial comment, letting the evidence speak for itself. "Your Honor," he concluded, "Mrs. Eldro deliberately disabled her diabetic son's life-sustaining medical equipment as punishment for a minor behavioral issue. This represents a clear and present danger to the child's welfare." Judge Harrison turned to Margaret Chen. "Response?" Margaret stood and immediately went on the attack. "Your Honor, Mr. Eldro has orchestrated a campaign of harassment and manipulation designed to destroy his wife's career and reputation. The insulin pump incident was a misunderstanding that has been blown out of proportion as part of his vindictive strategy. What evidence do you have of this alleged campaign?" Mr. Eldro conspired with Dr. Greer's wife to expose their relationship publicly. He's been spreading rumors throughout the community about my client's professional conduct. He's used his connections to damage her career and isolate her from her support network. I felt Tom's hand on my arm, a subtle reminder to stay calm. "Your Honor," Tom said, "Mrs. Eldro's professional difficulties stem from her own choices, not any action by my client. The exposure of her affair came from Dr. Greer's wife, who acted independently based on her own investigation." "Can you prove that Mr. Eldro had no contact with Patricia Greer?" Margaret asked. "Can you prove that he did?" Tom replied. Judge Harrison intervened. "Let's focus on the child welfare issue. Mrs. Chen, are you disputing the facts surrounding the insulin pump incident?" Margaret hesitated. "Your Honor, my client made an error in judgment during a stressful parenting moment. She immediately sought to correct the situation." "After 11 minutes, Judge Harrison said, consulting the medical records. "Mrs. Chen, an 11-minute interruption of insulin delivery to a diabetic child is not an error in judgment. It's child endangerment. My client was not attempting to harm her son. She was trying to get his attention during a disciplinary situation. By threatening his life?" The courtroom went silent. Even Margaret Chen seemed to realize how her defense sounded. Judge Harrison continued. "Mrs. Chen, I've read the police report, the medical records, and the digital logs from the insulin pump. There is no ambiguity here. Your client deliberately disabled life-sustaining medical equipment. The fact that she's an educated professional makes this behavior more troubling, not less." I could see Selah whispering urgently to her lawyer, but Margaret shook her head slightly. "Mr. Eldro," Judge Harrison said, "please stand." I stood, my heart pounding. "Have you ever used your son's medical condition to discipline or control him?" "No, Your Honor, never." "Have you ever threatened your wife or taken any action designed to harm her professionally?" "No, Your Honor. I've documented her behavior and protected myself legally, but I haven't taken any action to harm her career." "Mrs. Eldro, please stand." Selah stood, her composure perfect, except for a slight tremor in her hands. "Did you deliberately disable your son's insulin pump on the night in question?" Selah looked at her lawyer, who nodded slightly. "Yes, Your Honor, but—" "There is no but, Mrs. Eldro. You endangered your child's life. Why?" "He was being defiant about bedtime, and I wanted to get his attention." "By threatening his life." "I wasn't threatening his life. I was going to turn it back on." "After how long?" I don't remember exactly." "The digital logs show 11 minutes, Mrs. Eldro. 11 minutes without insulin for a diabetic child. Did you consider the medical consequences of your actions?" Selah's composure finally cracked. I was angry. Tyler had been testing boundaries all week, and Pierce wasn't supporting my disciplinary decisions. I just wanted him to understand that his behavior has consequences. "So you decided to make his medical condition the consequence?" Yes. The admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even Margaret Chen looked stunned. Judge Harrison made some notes, then looked up at both legal teams. "I'm granting emergency temporary custody to Mr. Eldro, effective immediately. Mrs. Eldro will have supervised visitation rights 2 hours per week, with supervision provided by the County Family Services Department. Selah gasped audibly. Furthermore, Judge Harrison continued, I'm ordering a full psychological evaluation of both parents and a home study to be completed before any permanent custody arrangement is determined. Your Honor, Margaret Chen said desperately, my client requests unsupervised visitation. Your client endangered her child's life, Mrs. Chen. She'll be lucky to maintain any visitation rights at all. Judge Harrison gathered her papers. Mr. Eldro, you'll need to file the appropriate paperwork with Family Services to establish the temporary custody arrangement. Mrs. Eldro, I strongly suggest you use this time to reflect on your priorities and seek appropriate counseling. She stood and left the courtroom, leaving us all in stunned silence. Tom was grinning as we walked out of the courthouse. That went better than I dared hope. Harrison is tough, but she's also fair. She saw right through the manipulation attempts. What happens now? Now you go home and take care of your son. The psychological evaluations will take a few weeks, but based on what just happened, I'm confident about the permanent custody arrangement. I called the school from the courthouse parking lot and explained the situation to the principal. Tyler would need to be released only to me or people I specifically authorized. The principal was understanding and supportive. Apparently, the story of Selah's behavior had spread throughout the school community. When I picked Tyler up that afternoon, he looked anxious. How did it go? He asked as soon as he got in the truck. Good. Really good. You're going to be living with me for now. What about Mom? She can visit you, but there will be someone there to make sure everything goes okay. Tyler was quiet for a moment. Dad? Am I the reason you and Mom are getting divorced? Nobody. Absolutely not. Your mom and I are getting divorced because we can't agree on how to treat each other or how to take care of you. That's an adult problem, not a kid problem. But if I hadn't been defiant that night, Tyler, listen to me. Your mother's choice to turn off your insulin pump was wrong, no matter what you did or didn't do. Kids are supposed to be defiant sometimes. That's how you learn to think for yourself. Adults are supposed to handle that without putting kids in danger. He nodded, but I could see he was still processing everything. That evening, while Tyler did homework, I called Riley to update him on the day's events. Sounds like the judge saw right through Selah's act, he said. Yeah, but I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. This feels too easy. Maybe it is easy. Maybe Selah finally pushed too far and there are actual consequences. Or maybe she's planning something bigger. Pierce, you won today. Take the win. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Selah wasn't done fighting. She'd lost the first major battle, but the war was far from over. My instincts proved correct on Friday morning when Margaret Chen called. Mr. Eldro, my client would like to arrange her first supervised visit with Tyler. Fine. When? Tomorrow afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m. at the Family Services office. I'll have him there. There's one more thing. My client has some personal items she needs to retrieve from the house. She'd like to arrange a time when you're not there. I thought about that. Selah had a legal right to her personal belongings, but I didn't trust her alone in the house. She can come Sunday morning. I'll be there. My client would prefer privacy. My client would prefer not to have his house ransacked. I'll be there, or she can wait for a court order. Margaret Chen sighed. Very well. Sunday at 10 a.m.? Fine. After I hung up, I called Tom to let him know about both arrangements. Be careful on Sunday, he warned. People do stupid things when they're desperate, and Selah is definitely desperate right now. Saturday's supervised visit went smoothly. Tyler was nervous at first, but the Family Services supervisor was a kind woman who made him comfortable. Selah was on her best behavior, asking about school and homework like nothing had changed. But I could see the calculation in her eyes, the way she studied Tyler's responses and the supervisor's reactions. She was gathering information, planning her next move. Sunday morning, Selah arrived at exactly 10 a.m. with Margaret Chen and a moving truck. I'd expected her to take clothes and personal items, not half the furniture. "What's all this?" I asked. "My client is entitled to her personal property," Margaret Chen said. "Her personal property doesn't include the dining room set we bought together." "Actually, it does. My client has receipts showing she paid for most of the furniture in this house." I watched them load our dining room table, the living room chairs, the bedroom set from our master bedroom, and dozens of boxes of items I'd never seen before. Either Selah had been secretly accumulating possessions, or she was taking things that didn't belong to her. "Where are you moving?" I asked. "That's not your concern," Margaret Chen replied. But I noticed the moving truck's license plate and made a mental note to have Riley track down the destination. After they left, the house felt hollow and strange. Tyler came downstairs and looked around at the empty spaces where furniture used to be. "It looks different," he said. "We'll get new furniture, stuff that's just ours." "Can we get a pool table?" I laughed. "Maybe. Let's see how much money your mother left us to work with." That evening, Riley called with information about the moving truck. They went to a condo complex on the north side of town. Expensive place, $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom unit. How is she affording that without a job? Good question. Either she's got money stashed somewhere, or someone's helping her financially. Dr. Greer? Unlikely. His wife froze all their assets as part of the divorce proceedings. I thought about that. Selah's parents were deceased, and her only sibling lived in California on a teacher's salary. Where was the money coming from? "Riley, can you find out who's paying for that condo?" "I'll make some calls." Monday morning brought another surprise. I arrived at my shop to find Danny talking to a man in an expensive suit. "Boss," Danny said when he saw me, "this is Robert Hayes from the State Environmental Agency. He wants to talk to you about some violations." My stomach dropped. Environmental violations could shut down my business permanently. "What kind of violations?" I asked. Hayes consulted his clipboard. "Improper disposal of automotive fluids, contamination of groundwater, failure to maintain required safety equipment. We've received a complaint alleging systematic environmental violations at this facility." "Who filed the complaint?" "That's confidential, but I can tell you it was filed by someone with detailed knowledge of your operations." I looked at Danny, who shook his head. He hadn't filed any complaint. "Mr. Hayes, I've been running this shop for 12 years. I follow all environmental regulations, and I have the documentation to prove it." "Then you won't mind if we conduct a full inspection?" "Not at all." But I knew what this was. Selah had found a new way to attack me, and she was using the power of the state government to do it. The inspection took 6 hours. Hayes and his team went through every inch of my shop, testing soil samples, examining my waste disposal systems, and reviewing 12 years of documentation. In the end, they found nothing. "Mr. Eldro, your facility is in full compliance with all environmental regulations. In fact, it's one of the cleaner shops I've inspected." "So the complaint was false?" "The complaint was inaccurate. Someone either misunderstood your operations or deliberately provided false information." After they left, I called Tom Bradley. "She's escalating," he said when I explained what had happened. "False complaints, property disputes, anything she can think of to make your life difficult." "Is this legal?" "Filing a false complaint with a state agency? No, it's not legal. But it's hard to prove, and the damage is done regardless. You lost a day of business, you were stressed and distracted, and your reputation in the community took a hit. So, what do I do? Document everything. And Pierce? Be very careful. People who file false complaints with government agencies are capable of other things, too." That night, I double-checked all the locks on our house and made sure the security system was armed. Selah had declared war, and I was finally beginning to understand how far she was willing to go to win it. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect Tyler and our future together. The gloves were officially off. The psychological evaluation was scheduled for Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Dr. Jennifer Walsh had been conducting family court evaluations for 15 years, and according to Tom Bradley, she had a reputation for seeing through manipulation and focusing on children's best interests. I arrived early and spent 20 minutes in the waiting room, reviewing the questions Tom had prepared me for. The key was to be honest, direct, and focused on Tyler's welfare, rather than my anger towards Selah. Dr. Walsh was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her office was decorated with children's artwork and family photos, creating an atmosphere that was professional but warm. "Mr. Eldro, thank you for coming in. I want you to know that this evaluation is about Tyler's well-being, not about judging you or your wife as people." "I understand. Let's start with your perspective on what led to this custody dispute." I told her everything, starting with the insulin pump incident and working through Selah's affair, her attempts to sabotage my business, and the false environmental complaint. Dr. Walsh took notes, but didn't interrupt or ask leading questions. "How would you describe your relationship with Tyler?" "He's the most important thing in my life. We're close. We talk about everything from school to sports to his worries about the divorce. I try to be honest with him while still protecting him from the worst of the adult drama." "What are your concerns about Tyler's relationship with his mother?" I chose my words carefully. "I'm concerned about her judgment. The insulin pump incident wasn't an isolated lapse. It was part of a pattern of using Tyler as a weapon in our marriage. She's threatened to take him away from me, she's tried to turn him against me, and she's created an unstable environment for him." "Do you think Tyler should have a relationship with his mother?" "Yes, absolutely. But it needs to be supervised until she demonstrates that she can put his welfare ahead of her own agenda." Dr. Walsh made more notes. "Tell me about your plans for Tyler if you receive primary custody." "We'd stay in the same house, same school, same community. His routine would remain as stable as possible. I'd make sure he has counseling to help him process the divorce, and I'd encourage his relationship with his mother as long as it's healthy for him." The evaluation continued for 2 hours, covering everything from my work schedule to my support network to my plans for Tyler's future. Dr. Walsh was thorough but fair, and I left feeling confident that I'd represented myself honestly. Selah's evaluation was scheduled for Thursday. I didn't attend, but Tom called me afterward with an update. "It didn't go well for her," he said. Dr. Walsh asked her directly about the insulin pump incident, and Selah became defensive and tried to blame you for Tyler's medical condition. "She blamed me for his diabetes? She said you were overly permissive about his diet and exercise, and that his condition was worse because you undermined her attempts at proper parenting. That's insane. I'm the one who manages his medical care. Dr. Walsh knows that. She also knows that blaming a parent for a child's chronic medical condition is a red flag for psychological issues." "What else happened?" Selah spent most of the session talking about her career, her social status, and how the divorce was affecting her reputation. She showed very little insight into Tyler's emotional needs or the impact of her behavior on him. "So we're in good shape?" "I think so. Dr. Walsh will have her report ready next week, and then we'll have the final custody hearing." That evening, Tyler and I were working on his science project when he asked a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, do you think Mom loves me?" I set down the glue stick and looked at him carefully. "What makes you ask that?" "She seemed different during our visit on Saturday, like she was pretending to be interested in what I was saying." Tyler was 12, but he was perceptive beyond his years. He'd picked up on something that even the family services supervisor might have missed. "Tyler, I think your mom loves you in her own way. But sometimes adults get so focused on their own problems that they forget how to show love properly." "Is that why she hurt me with the insulin pump?" "I think she was angry and made a terrible choice. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it doesn't mean she doesn't love you." Tyler nodded thoughtfully. "I love her too, but I don't want to live with her. Is that okay? That's completely okay. You get to have feelings about what happened, and you get to want to feel safe. Will the judge ask me what I want? Maybe. If she does, just tell her the truth about how you feel. I will. Friday morning brought news that changed everything. Riley called at 6 a.m., which meant something significant had happened. "Turn on Channel 7, he said without preamble. I flicked on the television to find a breaking news report. Dr. Mason Greer had been arrested for insurance fraud and tax evasion. The reporter was standing outside his medical office, which had been raided by federal agents. Dr. Greer allegedly billed insurance companies for services never provided and failed to report income from his consulting business, the reporter said. Federal prosecutors say the scheme may have involved several accomplices, including employees at client companies. I called Riley back. Do you think Selah was involved? I don't know, but the timing is interesting. The feds have been investigating this for months, which means they were building a case while Selah was having her affair. If she was involved in the fraud, then she's got bigger problems than a custody dispute. I spent the morning at my shop, trying to focus on work while my mind raced through the implications. If Selah was implicated in Dr. Greer's fraud scheme, she could face criminal charges. That would certainly impact the custody case, but it would also mean Tyler's mother might go to prison. At noon, Margaret Chen called. Mr. Eldro, we need to discuss the custody arrangement. I thought we were waiting for Dr. Walsh's report. Circumstances have changed. My client is prepared to agree to your custody proposal. Which proposal is that? Primary custody to you, with unsupervised visitation for my client. I was stunned. Yesterday, Selah was fighting for joint custody. Today, she was giving me everything I'd asked for. What's the catch? No catch. My client simply wants to resolve this matter quickly and amicably. Because of Dr. Greer's arrest? A pause. I can't comment on ongoing federal investigations. But that's what this is about. My client wants what's best for Tyler. Since when? Mr. Eldro, do you want the custody arrangement or not? I thought about it. Getting primary custody without a fight would be better for Tyler, but it also meant Selah was planning something else. I'll discuss it with my attorney and get back to you. I called Tom immediately. She's running scared, he said. Either she's involved in Greer's fraud scheme, or she knows something that could implicate her. Either way, she wants the custody case resolved before the federal investigation reaches her. Should I take the deal? Absolutely. Get it in writing, get it signed, and get it filed with the court before she changes her mind. What if she's planning to disappear? Then you'll have legal custody and the resources to find her. Pierce, this is what we've been fighting for. Take the win. That afternoon, I met with Margaret Chen and Selah at Tom's office to sign the custody agreement. Selah looked pale and stressed, nothing like the confident woman who'd tried to destroy me 2 weeks ago. This agreement gives you primary physical and legal custody of Tyler, Tom explained. Your wife retains visitation rights, but they're subject to Tyler's best interests and can be modified if circumstances change. What circumstances? Selah asked. Any circumstances that affect Tyler's welfare. Criminal charges, for instance, or behavior that endangers his physical or emotional health. Selah signed the papers without arguing. As we left Tom's office, she stopped me in the hallway. Pierce, I want you to know that I never meant to hurt Tyler. But you did hurt him. I know. And I'm sorry. Are you sorry you hurt him, or sorry you got caught? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. Selah, if you're involved in whatever Dr. Greer was doing, you need to think about Tyler. He doesn't need to see his mother arrested on television. I'm not involved in anything illegal. Good. Then you have nothing to worry about. But the fear in her eyes suggested otherwise. That evening, Tyler and I celebrated with pizza and a movie. He seemed genuinely happy about the custody arrangement, relieved that the uncertainty was over. Dad, Does this mean I don't have to visit Mom anymore if I don't want to? You still need to maintain a relationship with her, but we can adjust the visits based on how you're feeling and how things go. What if she gets in trouble with the police? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But Tyler, whatever your mother has or hasn't done, it doesn't reflect on you. You're a good kid, and nothing she does can change that. I know, but it's still scary. I know it is. But you're safe now, and that's what matters. The following Monday, Dr. Walsh's psychological evaluation arrived. Tom called to give me the highlights. It's about as favorable as these reports get, he said. She recommends primary custody to you, with supervised visitation for Selah until she completes parenting classes and individual counseling. What did she say about Selah? That she shows concerning patterns of manipulative behavior and poor judgment regarding child welfare. She also noted that Selah seemed more concerned with her own image than with Tyler's emotional needs. And about me? That you're a stable, caring parent who consistently prioritizes his child's welfare over personal grievances. She was particularly impressed with how you've handled Tyler's questions about the divorce. So we're done? We're done. The judge will rubber stamp this agreement based on Dr. Walsh's recommendation. That afternoon, I picked Tyler up from school and told him the news. So I get to stay with you permanently? He asked. You get to stay with me permanently. And Mom can't change her mind and try to take me away? Nobody. This is final. Tyler was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Can we get that pool table now? I laughed. We can definitely get that pool table. As we drove home through our familiar neighborhood, I reflected on everything that had happened in the past month. Selah had started this war by endangering Tyler, thinking she could intimidate me into submission. Instead, she'd awakened something in me that I didn't know existed, a ruthless determination to protect my son at any cost. She'd lost her job, her reputation, her marriage, and her son. Dr. Greer was facing federal charges, and if Selah was involved in his schemes, she might be facing them too. I should have felt sorry for her, but I didn't. She'd made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. Tyler was safe, our future was secure, and for the first time in years, I felt genuinely optimistic about what lay ahead. That evening, as Tyler worked on homework and I cooked dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations, you won. I stared at the message, realizing it was probably from the same person who'd sent me the original photos of Selah's affair. Someone had been helping me from the beginning, and I'd never found out who. I typed back, "Who are you?" The response came immediately. Someone who believes good people should win sometimes. I smiled and deleted the conversation. Whoever my anonymous ally was, they were right. Good people should win sometimes. And today, we had. Tyler called from the dining room. "Dad, I need help with my math homework." "Coming, buddy." I put away my phone and went to help my son with his homework, in our house, in our life together. Sometimes the good guys really do win.